Hi, it's Margaret, and thank you so much for joining me here on the Gardening Me. Today I'm doing a little cleanup. Not a ton of cleanup, just a little cleanup. Our snow has finally started to melt, but we do still have piles of snow kind of all over the place. But I wanted to make sure I get in there and do a little bit of cleanup just before we get a ton of new growth. Last year I waited a little bit too long and I was having a hard time of it afterwards because I was trying to step around all the daffodils and things like that that were coming up. So I don't want that to happen again this year. And it's also much more difficult to trim things up when you are trying to avoid the new growth coming up and you're kind of trying to cut around that. So I wanted to get out there nice and early. I was hoping to get out here sooner than this, but you know, now is when the snow is melting, so now is when we can actually see the plants. So what I'll do is first I'll just show you the kind of area I'm working on now, which is basically most of the area beside our driveway. It's kind of this area here, then not even half of our walkway, because the front of the house faces north. So the snow there is the last to melt, and we had 5 feet of snow literally piled up on either side of our walkway not that long ago. And we still have a good, I don't know, couple of feet there in a couple of places. So that area, I'm gonna, I think, do just the beginning part there, and then the rest we'll just have to wait until the snow melts on that. And then I'm going to go out to the border in the raised bed area, and I'm going to see what I can clean up in that area too. That area is actually one of the ones that has the most when it comes to bulbs and things like that. So it's super important that I get to it nice and early. I am going to be a little bit mindful of not really stepping all over the beds. I mean, technically, it's, you know, it's one of those things, it's a fine line, because you want to get out here before stuff really starts growing. But you also don't want to be walking all over the soil when it's sort of damp. Right now, it's not so bad because it's literally still half frozen. Once it's completely defrosted, and if you don't have, you know, good stepping stones or something like that to go on, it's not exactly the best, because then you're compacting the soil. It's kind of fragile when it's, you know, wet, basically, like that, especially with all this snow melt. It's going to be pretty wet for probably at least a couple of weeks or so after the snow melts. So anyhow, why don't we get to it? I have a lot of hellebores to clean up. There are some autumn joy sedums here, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to get to this. Underneath here is a honeysuckle. It is a thunderbolt honeysuckle, and I cover it up with straw because it's only marginally hardy here. I mean, technically I think it's not even supposed to be hardy here, but it did survive its first and second year just barely, and this time I thought I would cover it up with straw and see if I get a little bit less defoliation, and I think it worked, because I do see some green leaves there, and I have a feeling the leaves underneath all that straw are green too. But as you can see, it's going to be a little bit of time anyway before the snow around our front walkway melts. We had literally 5 feet of snow here only a couple of weeks ago, so everything is still pretty much covered. So nothing much is going to be going on here. Just as a little update, there is the drip tubing that I installed last year. It is not functional at the moment because the hookup to the house is not finished, but the hookup to all of the different hostas in this bed is done. But as you can see, I did mulch this whole area last year, but obviously not enough, because quite a bit of the drip tubing is sticking out. So I am going to have to come in with a load of mulch. I remember I got only a yard last year, and that yard did this whole area here, but I had to be a little bit scant with my placement of it because it just barely covered it. So in a way, I'm not really that surprised, but gonna have to do something about that. That looks like I don't know what, but in fact what that is we had some work done at the house, and the guy sawed all of the wood outside, and then I think what happened is it was on the driveway on the snow and that kind of thing, and then when we when we plowed the driveway, it kind of went over here. And now it looks like a lump of something or other. I don't know. But there's a bunch of rocks and things. I don't know. I think that when we plowed the driveway, I think the rocks came with that, because I don't remember. There's all these kind of strangely placed rocks. Like even here, there's a bunch of rocks. I don't know where these rocks came from. So I'm gonna have to get those cleaned up as well. So, but we do have some growth starting, which is super, super exciting right there. And look, we even have a hellebore starting to bloom. I planted a lot of bulbs in this area, or, well, not a lot, I guess, compared to like people that plant hundreds and hundreds, but I planted quite a few. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing all of them come up this year. Okay, so first things first is all these hellebores. Oh, look. There's some new growth coming up right there, right there. So let's get rid of all this foliage. I have to actually go grab a bucket or something to put this in. Let me go grab that now. Trying to avoid stepping on the bulbs that are already coming out. Ideally, I could have probably done just before this last big dumping of snow about 3-4 weeks ago, something like this, I think it was. The ground was completely frozen still, but there was no snow on the ground. And I could have, at that point, and I should have, come out here to deal with things like the hellebores, and even along the walkway and stuff. That would have been ideal. And there was no growth. Like right now I'm seeing tulips, daffodils coming up, and there was nothing to avoid at that point. This isn't as bad as it could be, but I am still having to avoid things, which is not ideal. And who knows what I'm stepping on underneath, right? But as I said, because the ground is still somewhat frozen, it's not so bad. This is probably not going to take me any amount of time, just because at this point there's so little to do. This bed is a relatively brand new bed, so not much is going on in here yet. Oh, there's right underneath. Look at that. See? That's why you have to be careful. That's new growth right there. You also have to be careful when you're working around drip lines. If you're kind of just cutting a bunch of stuff, not to accidentally clip a line, which I have done, especially in the asparagus beds, way too often. Here is, oh, this is a pulmonaria. This is called Red Start. Oh, we've got some garbage in here too. And, oh, I don't even know where to kind of start on this. I do see some new growth there. Let me just, you know what, for this one, I think I might just use my fingers to kind of pull out what's loose. Okay, as is often the case when you come out in the spring to do cleanup, there are neighbors that you haven't seen in a very long time. So it ends up being a catch-up session. So here we are, back to the pulmonaria. So I'm not sure. I'm just going to kind of clean it up like this and just kind of get rid of some of these ratty leaves. I do see some stuff coming up from the middle there and from the side too. So I might just go in here and just kind of clean some of these bigger, older leaves. I have other pulmonarias in the garden as well. And right off the top of my head now, I can't remember. Normally, I think the growth just kind of comes up and kind of flows on top of the plants. So normally I don't do a lot. Like I do clean up, but I think usually they're starting to grow quite a bit by the time I get in there. So this is the first time I've ever actually done it this early. There we go. I think that's good. I'm just gonna actually put a little bit of mulch around there. There. Okay, next. So I have this guy here, and it's looking a little bit on the pitiful side. This is a teddy globe cedar. And here it doesn't look too bad, like it's bronzed out a little bit, but that should be fine once the weather starts to warm up. But look back here, it's like something ate it. That is just not looking good at all. I'm thinking this one might have to come out. It depends how this thing looks. I'm going to give it a couple of months and see if it starts looking a little better, but that is, I mean, that's not good. Here is some Veronica. And there's some stackies. This is Humalo stackies. Here is Dianthus. Oh, I can see some Veronica leaves coming up already. Look, take a quick peek here. Look. Yay! Signs of spring, signs of spring. Now some more of the sedum here. There's the drip irrigation line that I am going to be hooking up in later this spring, I guess. And I just have it all ready to go. It's all set. It's going to be extended down this border here. So I wanted to do kind of the hard part last fall so that it'll be a quick job this spring when everything is so busy. I don't think I've ever done any raking in the spring of leaves off of the beds. I'll either leave them as they are or they just blow away on their own. I have to deal with all these rocks. These rocks are not staying here. They were kind of dumped here at one point and we never got around to moving them, but we have to put them on our driveway. Usually what we do is our area is super rocky. And so whenever we do anything like put in a new garden, you know, dig a hole for a new plant, we're always pulling up rocks. So what I do, and it works really well, is I'll just pile them up on the top of our driveway. And then once or twice a year, we just put an ad on Facebook Marketplace saying, hey, anybody want some rocks? Come get them. Because people love using rocks for their landscaping and things like this. Usually they're gone within a few days. This here is, I am gonna lift this up here. These matted leaves. This is a hosta. So oh, here's hosta underneath here. Like you can see this. This is all kind of matted hosta foliage. If I was smart and on top of things, I would have gotten rid of that hosta foliage in the fall. It is totally still frozen underneath here. So I'm just gonna do what I can. So now we get to these hellebores and this sedum here. Oh, and there's another hosta over here as well. There we go. So I'm not going to take away the straw yet. As I said, I'm going to clean this up. And I think that'll be it for this area out front here for today until we get more of a snow melt and I can continue on further down the path. Ugh, see? This is like, well, there, grab that one. So this is the border that I'm going to work on now, and this is the ornamental bed that is in the raised bed area. Sorry about the wind. It's just starting to pick up here. There's definitely a few things to cut back. Look at that carex. Look how gorgeous that looks. I mean, wow. It doesn't even look like it's the end of winter, does it? So, yeah, there's a few things to cut back. But overall, it's not too bad. I'm not going to cut everything back today. I'm just going to, at this point, cut back things that are obviously dead. I'm going to come back. I'm not going to do the rose yet. Like, this is a David Austin rose right here. Not sure how clear that is on screen, but I'm not going to do that quite yet because we are not yet at the point where we are completely free from freezing cold weather. You have to be super careful where I step now. Look at this. This is Baptisia, and it just literally lifts right off. Don't even need clippers for that. I think I'm just going to throw everything in a big pile and deal with it later in the week. Okay, I am all done. Good thing too, because the sun is on its way down and it is time for dinner. So I got basically everything cleaned up. I left little piles here and I will deal with those tomorrow. I'll probably just grab a big old tarp and put it just outside the fenced area, and then I can just drag everything up to the hill where the compost is. So I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing that really needs to be done is just pruning the Russian sage, which is over here, and the lavender, and the I have to clean up this oat grass as well a little bit, and then the rose. See the patch of green back there? That is foxglove from last year. I think that's Candy Mountain. So this year I am expecting an awesome show from that. So excited. And also I see lots of new growth already on the Veronica. I have a few of them here and then a few further down the bed as well. I also saw a little tiny bit of growth on this guy here, and that is a penstemon. Lots of daffodils are starting to come up. Another 2-3 weeks, we may see some blooms. Lots coming up. I did end up stepping on a few things, but I think they'll be okay. So that is about it. As I said earlier, I'm not going to be putting any of these piles of stems that I've cut onto the compost quite yet. I think I said that earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it near the compost, sort of in little piles. I'm not even going to pile it up into the huge pile, because if there are any little creatures in there that are hibernating, I want to make sure they have an opportunity to get out, wake up at their normal time, and go about their business. And then what I'll probably do is put it on the compost. I'm thinking around June or something like that. That's when everything will actually be going onto the pile, but not until then. And yeah, I just have a couple of other small areas I think to clean up that are not covered with snow. And then once the snow melts, there's a whole bunch of other cleanup that needs to happen once the rest of the snow melts. But I think that'll probably, I don't know, maybe be by the end of the week. I guess we'll see. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Bye.